That's the most
Never
fun
done that
part.
before.
Yeah, there
That's
you go.
good. Yeah, that's a highlight of my day
It's
today.
good, isn't it? John Ribot, I don't think there has been a major moment in the game of rugby league that you haven't been a part of. A very proud Maroon, you played for the Blues as well, an Invincible, a Super League power broker, a founding father of the Broncos and the Storm.
Vonnie, I've been very lucky from that point of view that I remember running around the fields of West Mitchie and dreaming about in backyard test match football and all that. Never thought you dreamt about it, but you never thought it'd become achievable. I often say to people, if I fall off the perch, celebrate my life. I've had a great time.
Where did footy come into it for you? Very early?
I started playing football when I was about 9, and there was a football field not far away from us. We used to walk on the train tracks and go and train at night, and Mum would find time to take us to the games on the weekends.
Richardson sprinting through. Kuhn's there, he's lost it. Richardson has it. Oh, Elephant's got it. Elephant down to Ribot. Oh, yes. Ribot, the try scorer.
Paint a picture of Brisbane Rugby League in the BRL in the 70s, playing for Wests and Valleys. What a time.
They were crazy times. You reflect back now and the crowds. We'd go to Lang Park and I get 20,000 to a game, and getting in the semi-finals, and that was just, the whole community was just so vibrant about the game.
So by the time you signed with the Newtown Jets, did you feel like you'd hit the big time?
Well, I'd always wanted to come to Sydney, and we negotiated the price, and away I went. Quick story.
Yeah, go for it. We're here for you. Any stories you have?
When Singo signed me, my mother said to me at the time, whatever you do, don't sign a contract. I said, oh, no, I won't do that. So I went and had a meeting with him, and we're sitting beside a pool next morning, and he said, look, we'd love you to come down. So he mentioned a number, and he said, what do you want? And I said this. He said, oh, geez, we weren't planning on spending that much. But he made a phone call. Then he came back and he said, look, I haven't got any contracts, but I've got some cash. And he opened up the bag and he said, you count. When you think you've got enough, we'll call the contract. There's no salary cap.
Oh, my God. There was just a bag of cash?
Cash. He had a bag of cash.
So what was the number? Do you mind me asking?
$5,000 it was at the time.
That's big.
Big money. You buy a block of land for $5,000 in Brisbane.
And so what, you just hopped into a bag of cash?
Yeah, I'm thinking, he said, count as much as you like when you call the contract. I've gone, my God.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. I went back and told Mum, and she's gone, yeah, well, probably a good decision, because that was a lot of money.
That's,
yeah.
Running nicely. Looking for the lob pass, and it's gone to Ribot. They won't stop him, I don't think. He's into the corner.
By the time you became a Western Suburbs magpie, were you very comfortable being part of that fibro scene?
Oh, yeah, well, I came from I'm a fibro by heart and fibro by nature. That's my lifestyle. That's where I came from. So for me, that was a great fit. And we had so many good players that we all had a common goal of getting out there and just proving them wrong. And we were the fibros, and it was a good way. I really loved my time at West. That was probably one of my highlights.
And then you do the unthinkable. You cross the Harbour Bridge.
Yeah.
You head to the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles.
I really enjoyed my time at Manly. It was great. Unfortunately, my 2 last games of each year, I didn't enjoy them too much. And you still think about those things. You said, geez, how do we get that wrong?
Who were you tight with at Manly? Who were some of your closest friends?
Oh, Fatty was there at the time, so Fatty was a lot of fun. So
so he's never changed?
No, he's still the same.
Vorton taking the kick and makes no mistake. Oh, look at the score now. Hey, a little skip from Fatty.
I played with guys I saw as legends, Terry Randall and Max Skrillich, and there were so many good players there, so I was very fortunate.
Ken Arthurson, how important was he for you at that time? What was your relationship like?
When I had the conversation with Ken about signing with Manly, he said to me at one stage, he said, we'd love to get you in here because we think you're a really good player. And, you know, John, to bring you in here, I'll treat you like my son. And at that time, I've gone, wow. I went out after I signed the contract and agreed to go. Fatty was talking to me, and he said, you got the 35,000 and treat you like your son? Oh, God, oh, jeez.
Young finds O'Reilly standing wide, bumps out of one tackle, got the pass on nicely to Ribot. Ribot's out of one tackle. This is a try, I'd say. He's getting up over the quarter line. Dived up by Stacey. Backer comes at him, but Ribot's over underneath the post.
You've had an extraordinary representative career. You were Queensland firsts and then New South Wales firsts. You had Tommy Ribot as your captain or involved. I mean, Tommy would rip the heads off Queenslanders if he got half a chance. What was that like?
The way the game was treated back then, because New South Wales believed, you know, they're confident they're going to win. And we're having a bit of a team meeting the night before. And Tommy goes on one of his rants and say, we'll tear their heads off and let's rip into them. I go, oh, Jesus. Well, I did stop. I said, look, you better be careful. These guys have got some really good footballers in their side. They can play. Oh, well, Tom just didn't miss a beat. Just, well, that'll make us more keen to go and rip their heads off.
How did you feel putting on a Blues jersey?
Oh, you know, Bonnie, it was more, for me, it was a personal thing to say, a recognition to say they think you're the best winger in New South Wales. Mel was on the wing that night, so I was talking to him about when are we going to go and have it after the game. We'll have a drink and it'd be good to catch up with you, because Mel's the sort of guy you don't want to ruffle his feathers because that's danger.
Don't wind Mel up.
So he was my very best friend.
Scott got away to Henrik. He tried to clear it over there to Rowcliffe, intercepted by Ribot. Shut the gate, it's all over. He's up over the halfway mark. Meninga's out after him, but there's Ribot striding over the quarter line. He'll go over underneath the post, and Ribot in for his second try.
So after a stint playing for the Blues, you then finally get to play for what we now know is the modern style of State of Origin. And you've got Wally Lewis and you've got Mal Meninga, and Artie Beetson is your coach at this point. You're running out at Lang Park. That must have felt like a childhood dream.
Yeah, you had to pinch yourself saying, is this real?
Meninga, good step. Into the clear, Mortimer is the mate of 3 tackles. It's away to Boston. That was there. Comes back on the inside. Long pass. Got a Ribot.
Representative honours, Kangaroos call up. When did the phone call first come through?
It was just after the grand final. We were in the function and they'd ring the club, and then they'd come into the function there, and they'd go up the podium and just announce that here's the squad. Bittersweet sort of night that we lost the grand final, but they announced that we're off on a kangaroo tour for 3 months.
What made the Invincibles?
There were so many good players. You got Brett Kenny, Wally Lewis going for the same positions, Mark Murray with Peter Sterling. So there was plenty of competition going around, and
massive personalities, massive egos, all in that one era.
Right,
it's phenomenal.
Right. Now to Jack. Jack in the clear. Jack has only the fullback to beat. Throws the dummy. Tries to link up with Ribot. Ribot for the corner. Ribot scores. Australia lead.
By the time you're starting to think about retirement from footy, you obviously still wanted to be involved in the game to some capacity. What opportunities came along?
And I think when I got to probably 28, you start to think about that life after football, because it wasn't a full-time job. I was asked to be the state coaching and development officer. So, and there was Wally Lewis and Wayne Bennett. So it was a team of three
And you were
amigos.
their boss?
Yeah, well, technically I was, but I wasn't their boss.
Not really.
I can assure you of that.
When did you first hear the whispers of something about a Brisbane team, potentially something called the Brisbane Broncos?
That was interesting. Darryl Vanderveld was the first person to bring it up to me. He rang me on a Friday and he said, would you have a think about this and whether you'd be interested in being involved? I thought, well, this has got some legs. And then it sort of took its own momentum when the media got onto it. We organised a meeting and they said, would you come and join our consortium for the bid? And I said, yeah, it just depends on what level. What do you want me to do? They said, we'd like you to be the general manager. So I've gone, wow, this is a real opportunity. I still get a few tingles from it. You know, just a moment you go, imagine 2 years prior to that or thereabouts, Wally's playing with Wally, he's throwing me balls and Gene and Wally and all that, and all of a sudden I'm their boss.
It's life-changing. I mean, you talk about the early inception, and I think the Broncos became a team for all of Queensland.
Yeah.
Outside Origin, everyone wanted to be a Brisbane Bronco.
Yeah. One thing I learned very early in the piece, while you're sitting there as an owner or a managing director of a company, and something as emotional as a football team, it's really owned by the people. Don't kid yourself. If you don't get it right, they won't keep supporting, and nor should they keep supporting you if you don't give them what they want. But they were vested into that to say, we're going to invest in the people. And that's the community to get those pathways and get the message out there. We are Queensland's team. We want to do something really special. So they gave me a handshake on a 5-year plan. And they obviously wanted to win. So that was the deal.
So Wayne was in place?
At first he was a bit hard to get. Paul Morgan packed up his suitcase. He flew into Canberra, knocked on Wayne's door, and Wayne answers the door and says to Porky, what are you doing with the suitcase here? He said, I just brought it because I'm not leaving till you sign. So, and that was one of their best decisions they ever made, was getting him there. And as Paul said at the time, that you keep telling me he's the best coach. I said, I think he will be our best coach.
So by the time your very first game arrives in 1988 and the Broncos blow Manly away.
Here's Lewis. Lewis still going. Lewis still going. Lewis is going to score a try. Yes, he is. Lewis from the dummy half and away he went.
Do you remember that day? Do you remember the response from that performance?
Yeah, it was a very nervous day. The way it all came together, and Wally and all that, we had too many good players at the time. They just gelled on the day, and it ended up being one of the great days.
And then 92, 93, simply the best years.
Yeah.
John Ribot, congratulations.
Thanks, Ray. It's been a fantastic day for the club, so we're going to do a bit of partying over the next few days.
What was it like to be part of the Brisbane Broncos juggernaut through, I think, is one of the most glory times that we have had to celebrate in the game?
The chemistry of that time was just, from a Broncos point of view, was sensational. And I know winning the grand final and coming back into Brisbane, and the crowd that was at Brisbane, there would have been 20,000 people plus at the airport. Then we went back to Fulchers Road where we trained. The whole ground was just full of people. And I think at one stage they surfed Alfie across from the change rooms to the clubhouse, which is 150 metres, but the people just lifted him across.
The high ball from Alan Langer across the face of goal. It's still allowed to bounce, and that's going to be a try. Alan Langer followed it through and scores the simplest try you'll ever see.
Signing Alfie, signing the Walters brothers. Did you know at the time those were going to be hallmarks for the game and hallmarks for the Broncos?
Signing Alfie was probably our 4th or 5th choice. His manager at the time was Tom Rodonicus. Tommy loved Alfie, so he shopped him down to I think St George, Illawarra. West might have had a look at him. They all just came back and said, the bloke's too small. He just won't make it. So Tommy rang me and said, John, this kid can play. Don't worry about the size of the body. He's something special. Once you got into and saw what he's all about, you got, hang on, we've got a good little player here.
Langer. Well, he looked like he might. He's still dancing and weaving. The little grubber kick through. Lewis is there. Lewis falls on it. And it's a try.
What were you most proud of from your time at the Brisbane Broncos?
Cyril Cole had a great saying. He said, look, I can't promise you that you'll end up playing for Australia or Queensland or even their first grade side at the Broncos, but I can promise you I'll make your son a better person. And I think that standard's still there, and Kevy understands the DNA, if I call it, but it's a good place. And I use the analogy, something you walk in the clubs, you can smell that they're good.
So after the Broncos, we're sort of getting in towards Super League territory. In a perfect world, what was the concept of Super League? What could it have been? And what's the utopia that rugby league was looking for at that time?
The landscape of sport was about to explode, and history will show that that's what happened with pay TV. So we had to create an environment so to go with that momentum that was going to come, that we could take advantage of it.
Once Super League started to turn the cogs, the scramble for signatures was on. It was almost like an arms race. And I can imagine the big names that you guys wanted to target. And if we use Alfie as an example, in terms of numbers, like what would he have been getting as opposed to what Super League could offer?
Alfie won't mind me mentioning this, I don't think. His numbers would have been around 125,000 from the club at the time. He got 600,000 in Super League, and he got good money as a loyalty payment up front.
That's life-changing money.
It's life-changing.
Yep.
It was just crazy. We did the contract with Rupert to say, is he going to do this? We had to do a presentation. I was a bit nervous to doing that. I've never done that to, especially Rupert Murdoch. What am I doing here? Our budgets at the time was 68 million to bring a competition together. Back then, that was a lot of money. Football teams were turning over probably 4 or 5 million. So he said, I just got to just hold you up here. I think the 68 you're wrong with, it's going to hit 100. And I go, and there goes my job. I go, I missed the budget by $32 million. But he then said, I think this is going to be really exciting, and I look forward to doing this with you. And we got up and shook hands, and he said, I wish you all the best. 3 months, or I think it was probably, 3 or 4 months later, we'd spent close to 500 million. So it was serious stuff.
And yet really the rhetoric was around treachery and greed and loyalties being tested and friendships and clubs all at war with one another. Did you feel like the bad guys?
Well, we were perceived to be the bad guys, and I accept that. And there was some tough times during that. So that was. I think that was to be expected in a way. It was never going to be an easy thing to do.
But like even the infamous Footy Show episode, right, that people click on, and there's Ray Hadley, and he won on points decision because the crowd goes crazy, and it was all sort of the biggest names in the game, and they all had you in the crosshairs. Yeah. Did you know what you were walking into that night?
The vision is about taking the game to the rest of the world. It's about giving the patrons and the fans a better deal than what they've had in the past.
What a load of crap. It's all about paid television, John. It's all about lining people's pockets with money. And for you to sit here and say anything different is just an absolute farce.
It was a panel show. I was there with Chris Johns. We were going to speak, Ken Arthurson and John Quayle. There's 4 of us, just a panel and someone to do the interview. When we got there, we're sitting in the room getting a bit of makeup and stuff, and you could hear this roar. I go, what's going on here? I said, what's happening out there? Are you cutting a show somewhere? He said, no, that's the show tonight.
That's the Footy Show.
Said, the Footy Show? I'm not on the Footy Show. This is a panel style of the Footy Show. And I had to make a decision. Do we go or do we stay? And I said to Chris at the time, I said, look, I think we're going to do this. We're going to get bashed up out there. And I think my last words to Chris was when we were walking in, I said, I know now how the Christians felt when the Lions were waiting for them. So it was like that.
It had a Colosseum feel.
Whew.
Yeah.
And away we went. So that was a tough night.
I've seen enough greed and enough treachery in the last 2 weeks in this game to last me a lifetime. Hear, hear.
Thank you.
I don't think I answered the first question, though. I still haven't answered that yet.
I don't think you got much in, to be fair.
It was good. Anyway, it wasn't good, but...
It must have been... you were portrayed as one of the most hated men in Australian sport, and you were ruining the game that we all know and love. How tough was it for you and your family to cope with around that time?
That was really tough. At the time when you my family home was we had security inside the house and outside the house with young children. So that was
security guards in your house?
Inside the house.
Because of threats?
Yeah, threats. So, that wasn't pleasant. That's something you'd never want to take your family through.
How'd you hold your nerve through all that?
Just believing in what we were doing was right. I'd say this to the people that say, why would you do that to a game? Give me an example of a major game that hasn't had disruption. They all do, and you'll have a moment in time where you just got to you've got to rejig things and reset. And I think that was a major reset. But where we are today and where we potentially can head, I think it was probably a skirmish that had to be had, and I think history will prove that.
your game can be Super League.
Challenging the game can also be championing the game and for change. And change isn't always easy. Who had the appetite for the dirty stuff? Was it more Packers men or was it more Murdoch men?
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I think there's a bit on both sides.
How intimidating was Kerry?
Very intimidating. I still remember the day that he came and presented to all the clubs. And when he walked in the room, you just feel it, oh boy, Kerry's here. And the presence of Kerry was just, you just felt it. Then he got up and he spoke. He said, I've got a contract with each club here in the league and I expect it to be honoured. If you don't honour it, I'll come after you personally. So, and he said, in his way, he said, has anyone got anything to say? Well, everyone's sort of got their heads down.
This is history. They'll be led out by Tarwin and Ikau, the New Zealand international. And this is the welcome they get from Wynn Stadium here in Wollongong. Here come the Melbourne Storm.
The long-term plan for you was always Melbourne.
Yeah.
Bringing rugby league to the sporting capital of Australia, because you've got this vision for the game that it probably can't see for itself at times.
Yeah.
What was the appetite like for rugby league down here, and what promises did Rupert make to you at the time when he said, yep, Melbourne, it'll be yours?
I said to Rupert, look, if Melbourne, we do what we think and we keep expanding the game that we want to do, if Melbourne were to become available, I'd love to be able to get the rights for that. And he said, yeah, that's not a problem. And we just shook hands.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Olympic Park for what is an historic occasion in the National Rugby League. It is the Melbourne Storm taking on the North Sydney Bears. The Storm.
First night, the game had started, and Chris Johns came to me and said, still 4,000 people outside. What are we going to do?
Trying to get in.
Trying to get in. So I shouldn't say this, but I said, just go and open up all the gates. So we opened all the gates, and then they came, and they were sitting on the running track back then. Well, I think that was a night to say, it felt like, hey, we've arrived, and it's just grown ever since.
Very similarly to the Broncos, the early success, the 99 premiership.
The hooter has gone. Melbourne have won it. Melbourne have won the grand final. A sporting miracle.
Did that change the perspective of how everyone, again, very similar to the Broncos, we've got to take these guys down south pretty seriously?
We thought we'd certainly got to be competitive. To say that, Ronnie, we're going to win this in 2 years, that, you know, I wouldn't be silly enough to say that. But after the first year, and then when Steve Kearney came on board, we were able to just really take focus again and go to another level. We were always going to be the real deal in the second year.
By the early 2000s, something astonishing was starting to happen here, and you got names walking through that front door that would then change the history for the Melbourne Storm forever.
Yeah.
Craig Bellamy, Cameron Smith, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, Greg Inglis. These were the guys that would then make their mark in terms of a culture and a legacy.
Yeah. When we were looking at Craig Bellamy, his name just kept coming up. And knowing him as a player and what he stood for, I go, this bloke's a good guy, and I'd ring the guys, obviously had a good relationship with the Broncos. So I sat down by him and had a chat to him. I thought, wow, this bloke's the real deal. We've got to get him, because I think West were after him at the time. So we ended up getting a negotiation happening pretty quickly, and he agreed to come on side. And just what he's done for the club here is just, it's something. It's in sport. He's such a humble guy, but what he's been able to do for the brand here, he's been a significant player in that success. I will never forget the time he walked across that field with the players behind him, and we're not going away. We're here to stay. But we're going to do this for the people of Victoria, and all that was Churchillian to me. I feel tingly. You're talking about it. And what that did for players, that was a terrible time for the club, because most of the players had no significance in all this. And that was a big price to pay, what happened during that period. So, and Craig, wow, we need the real leader. And that just showed his leadership qualities. he's a guy you go to the trenches with.
At the end of the day, you've devoted most of your life into growing the game and expanding the game and making the game bigger than its suburban mentality, taking the game to around the world. What are you most proud of?
I suppose history will report on that. It's not for me to say, but what I've personally got out of it is just the relationships I've had with people and understanding a guy that played at West Mitchie, going out there and be able to live my dream and then get into a position to let other people live their dreams and create pathways, whether it be Marcus Bai coming down from PNG, some of the Fijian players, with Tui coming over there, and you go there and you get into where they come from and to see where they are. They're proud, they're beautiful people, and that will stay with me for the rest of my life. That it's a really nice thing to reflect on from time to time. It's been a great asset to me.
So you've lived through the light and shade of the business of rugby league. It's not always pleasant, but you've done a magnificent job. We're so lucky to have you.
Thank you, Vonnie. I really appreciate you saying that.